Greetings and welcome to this episode of Conversations with the Code 9 Foundation. Mark here, and I'm sitting here with police veteran Ron Fenton, sitting in his backyard with the wind chimes and a little bit of gentle breeze and his nice little peaceful area, which is suitably outstanding and very peaceful. Welcome, Ron.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
Good, thanks, mate.
Actually.
Yeah, afternoon. What are we? Yeah, it is afternoon. Thanks for taking the agreeing to take some time to sit down with us. Your story it's not only unique, it's highly unique, and we'll get into the reasons why later on. And just a fascinating, incredible story of resilience, and as we've been talking about for the last sort of 40 minutes or so before we press record, just plenty of fun and some bad times, but the positivity and the laughter that's come out of it has been pretty good. So let's go back. Dive one, you're a police veteran now, but at one stage you were a
Gadget.
A brand new, spanking, off-the-shelf member of Victoria Police.
Yep, absolutely. Full of enthusiasm, believing I could save the world.
What date was this?
The 1st of February 1972.
72. Does that make you a cadet?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Spent two and a bit years in the cadet. Started off training at the depot, for those that are old enough to remember that, depot. And then did my recruit training at the academy, so I've got the best of both worlds.
So I wasn't a cadet. So talk me through that. Well, what happened when you were a cadet?
Well, cadets in those days, there were two styles of cadets. There were those that were close to 18, etc., and they were just given some preamble police training, so to speak, and worked in watch houses as you know, at the counter, etc. But there was also a group that, because of our age, they had what they call the PS, the Police Education Scheme, and I did both my leaving and matriculation, so years 5 and 6, or whatever they call them now, 11, 12, or whatever.
Yep.
Did my leaving and matriculation in the police force. One of the few of the 24 of us, not all of us got the actual matric, but I was lucky enough to get it. And then went out to the academy and started working there. And
did you always want to be a copper?
No, in fact, the irony is that prior to this, I had desires of doing medicine, and actually I had this fascination because I've been fascinated by the human brain for so long. I wanted to be a brain surgeon, and ended up needing one. So sort of trying to get ahead of the game, so to speak.
And that will become apparent later on when you needed a brain surgeon.
Yeah. So I wanted to be a brain surgeon, but then I'd been a scuba diver for 2 years by then. I joined a group called ADA, Associated Divers Academy, and I'd become a diver. I started learning diving at the sea baths in the sea. Obviously, sea baths. Oh gosh, geez, that's hard to work. Oh, just to clarify for you guys that couldn't work that out. And I'd seen a program. They used to have a thing like Sunday Magazine or something back in the early 70s. It was a bit like 60 Minutes. It did specials on things. And they were talking about the Victoria Police Search and Rescue Squad. And I thought, God, that's not a bad job. You know, diving, getting paid to dive. I love this underwater stuff. So my entire role for joining the police force in the first place was to actually go into the search and rescue squad. That's why I joined. And I eventually got there. I was lucky enough to be accepted into a training course within the year of graduation.
So you graduated and only spent a year in
August. I graduated, and either September, October of that year or the year after, there was a training course advertised. Over 230 applicants, and I managed to weasel my way through to actually go on the course and joined the search and rescue squad. Apparently I'm the youngest member ever to join search and rescue, and search and rescue in Victoria is a bloody good role. I mean, we do every single facet of search and rescue, whereas Sydney, for example, there's certain police do diving, certain police do lift rescue, etc. And apparently, from what I'm told, more people have actually been on the International Space Station than have actually been a full-time member of the search and rescue squad. It's that hard to get in. So I spent a couple of years there, and then stupidly, through my own actions, I made myself probably not a good member to be there, and it was through my own those actions. In hindsight, I can look back and say, yes, it was my fault that I had to leave. No one else was, not my bosses. The boss was doing the right thing. And I actually got a chance to shake his hand many, many years later at one of our, I think it was our 40-year reunion, 40 years of existence of the squad, to actually shake his hand and say, yes, it hurt me a lot, and I was very, very angry with you, but what you did was right. And it was justified, and I created the rod for my own backyard. Take accountability of your own actions. If you do something, you are accountable for it. And so I had to basically bear my ass in Burke Street and say, boss, you were right, I was wrong, I was stupid, my fault, not yours. Thank you so much for giving me the time you did. And shook his hand, which I then was lucky enough to be invited to his inspector, his funeral, Mr. Bill Green, a man I hugely respect, the creator of the Search and Rescue Squad in Victoria. And I'm just honoured that I had a chance to work on him. I wish I had learned the lesson he wanted to teach me earlier. But I didn't.
Oh, that's benefit of hindsight, isn't it? And it's we all
great. Hindsight's great stuff. If only could have it beforehand.
Right. So you went to from Search and Rescue, then to
over to the Public Relations Division, which I thoroughly enjoyed. We used to spend a week touring. We'd go out for a week and tour a country hub. So we'd go to Ballarat and go to every little school right around Ballarat. And then we'd come back, do another 3 weeks of work in metro area, and then out for a week up to Mildura and do all the schools there. And that was absolutely fantastic. That was so much fun. Getting the kids to understand that we're more than just a guy in a suit. You have to adapt your presentation. And when you get to the one-room school where you've got to sort of keep both the preps and the seniors happy, it's a bit of a trial, but it's great fun. And just to see the look of light and understanding in their faces, it has been great. I loved it.
So that would have been the predecessor to the police school's involvement program.
Oh God, yeah. Oh man, The Victoria Police Public Relations Division had the display branch where Ivan Ray came from. That's where I met Ivan. It also had the display section, the lecture squad, and technical section. So we all worked together. Display section would build all the stuff for the Royal Melbourne Show, etc. And also do stuff for the lecture squad, props we need. And as I say, just spent a couple of years back and forth from there. But then Executive Instruction 94 came out. And I was in public relations, and I had less than 12 months to get out of the station, build a portfolio, and get before the CIB. An impossible task. Impossible task. So I left public relations. Just trying to think from there. And then I got a vacancy at Sandringham and went to Sandringham, and that was a great station. Beach patrols. Beach patrols during summer, really great boss. And you get back from court, nothing to do. Okay, go and check that the women are safe out on the beach. So get the old duffel bag, or not duffel bag, little shoulder bag with the firearm in it, and off you go down the beach. And
down the beach.
It was hard job.
Getting paid to beach patrol.
A dirty job, someone's got to do it. Always up for the task. So I went from Caulfield Primaries, from Sandringham, and then was fortunate enough to get a vacancy at Caulfield Chromecast. And worked with some famous and infamous people in the career. I mean, my very first sergeant back at St Kilda was a man of some repute. He was my training sergeant, Brian Murphy. And that will probably explain to a lot of people what sort of person I am if Brian Murphy was my training sergeant. And Snapper Keith or Snapper Fleming, Frank Spencer, Spurt Spencer, a few legends in the force, and were my training sergeants. Thoroughly enjoyed St Kilda, but time to move from there. From where I go from St Kilda, crikey. Then from St Kilda to the Caulfield Prime Cars, and that's of course where the injury occurred.
Right. So how long were you at the Crime Cars? prior to
Probably a couple of years.
a couple of years, so enjoying it.
Oh, loving it. I got involved in a joint just before I got shot. I got in joint. I became the coordinator and sort of started the investigation into Operation Nautilus, which was a joint federal state task force.
Yeah.
And in those days, millions of dollars weren't really being seized, and we ended up getting a $13 million bust of heroin down the corrugations of a container, and that was as a result of following up an investigation.
13 million in those days.
In '84.
Would have been
a bit.
Not too many of those.
Yeah, there weren't many of them.
Very rare.
Yeah.
I would think $1 million would have been rare.
Yeah.
Let alone 13. So, reasonable job.
Yeah, I'm proud to be part of it. But then, whilst we're still processing that, bang, someone said duck, and I looked up instead of looking down.
Right, talk me through it.
The night, God, that was a hell of a night. Myself and Paul Gilbert, partner, in crime cars, for those that don't know, because it's changed now, in crime cars you work in a 4 or 5 man crew and you all work together. That's how you worked. And we did our job together. That night Paul and I were on 6 to 2 night shift, and it was getting close to midnight, past midnight, and we were in fact we were at Chadstone Shopping Centre, which I spoke about before. I don't know whether it was on air or not.
No.
Prior to that, a couple of weeks prior to that, young man by the name of Dean William Wright had been on top of Chadstone and been taking pot shots at everyone in the car park. Because Chadstone Shopping Centre was in our Caulfield area, we turned up, and sadly this young man got really upset and was taking his pot shots at everyone and shooting at the Channel 10 helicopter, which is important because Foxy would, and taking shots at the Channel 10 helicopter and the police all the time. Eventually this kid finally decided that escape was a better part of courage, and he shot himself in the head while he was on top of the lift rock. And I was there for that. And the night finished.
Yep.
That was it. That was my only involvement with Dean William Wright. Research has shown further the guy that shot me, young Kai Kelly, or Kane Mackie, whatever his name he wants to use now, because I know he's changed his name. Kai developed a hero worship for him. Kai was an ex-member of the Army Reserve, and in fact an ex-member of the unit that I ended up working at as well in the Army. I ended up being a training sergeant at Monash University, training warrant at Monash University Regiment, and that was where he was. So it just keeps on lapping over itself. Anyway, we developed a hero worship for Dean and blamed the police force for everything. So some weeks later, young Kai got his rifle and went out to Channel 10 when it was out at Nunawading and shot up the Channel 10 chopper just to get revenge because of what Channel 10's involvement in Dean's death.
Yep.
Now, Kai had a room filled with books of mercenaries, Soldier of Fortune, all that sort of thing. So he was a frustrated mercenary, poor kid, and obviously not quite all together. And on the night of the shooting on the 20th of November, he had an argument with his parents over a dog. And in fact, the way I look at it is my life is worth a dog, because that's how it all started. So Kai went out that night to this time get even with Channel 10, and he's smart. This time he got a jerry can of fuel, and he got, I think it was 200 to 300 rounds of ammunition. Now, all that ammunition he had spent some time on, premeditated, spent some time on actually home adapting the rounds. He cross-filed the head and then drilled the centre of the cross so that the bullet would explode on impact, which I'm glad it did, because if it had been solid it would have killed me. But he adapted all these rounds, and then he went out to Channel 10 to try and get even. The idea was pour petrol over the chopper, because when he shot it last time he just put holes in the fuselage, which they fixed up. but his intention was to pour fuel over the chopper and then fire off as many rounds as he could until he got a spark, and then up she'd go. Unfortunately, when he went out there, the chopper was out on assignment, so he was frustrated, couldn't get what he wanted. So he headed home. He used to live in Beaumaris, and so he headed home. Hang on a sec. And on the way, pardon me interrupting, lighting up a cigarette. Hey, they're going to kill me, I know. On the way back to home, he stopped at a few of the old disposal stores. Now, those of us with any veteran status in a job or even a long time living will know the old disposal stores used to have handguns, fake handguns, in display in the windows. And Kai owned a shotgun. He owned a high-powered rifle, a 223, which was a Swiss Army leader assault rifle, so it's a proper assault rifle, a bit like your AK-47 or your SLR. And so he saw these handguns and he thought, I might try and get one of those. He liked around off his collection. So he's driven home, driving around various places. He ends up in Clayton and sees Mr. Peter Poole, the late Mr. Peter Poole, who's a security guard. Pete's car is parked on a double driveway, so his car's at a bit of an angle. And he drove past Pete, saw he was a security guard, he was in a Wormald's car, and thought, this guy's going to have a handgun, I'll have to get that. Drove past Pete, stopped his car, and walked back. Now, Peter was obviously having a kick, because his seat was rolled right back. He was a gate checker anyway. He doesn't carry firearms, he's just a gate checker. So he walked back towards Peter, and Peter stirred, now possibly having a wet dream, but who knows. He moved. Yeah. He moved. And as a result, Kai just blasted, I think it was 16 rounds through the door of the car, and took bits of metal from the door skin into Pete's body, and killed him. Hopefully he died instantly. The bullets were that powerful, the rounds were that powerful that it actually blew one of his arms off, hit him in the elbow and blew the arm off. It went through his chest, decimated his liver, his spleen, his heart. Death was hopefully, mercifully, pretty quick. And then, because he had left evidence at the previous shooting of Channel 10, before he did anything else, he then picked up every expended round at the scene, because he knew he left evidence at Channel 10 last time. He didn't want to leave evidence that would match him to this one.
Yep.
So he picked up all the expended rounds. Then he grabbed Pete and pulled him out of the car in such a way that Pete's feet were still in the car, but his body was on the ground. Now, you add to that the fact that the car's on an angle because of the driveway. His feet are up, his head is down, and he bleeds to death, or he bleeds out very quickly. If he's not dead already, he's bled out really quick. So we're at Chadstone now. We're now doing the old patrol, running number plates in his stolen cars in the car park of Chadstone, when it was much, much smaller than it is now. So you had enough time to actually get a few. And a call comes out to a suspect body down in Clayton. Now, I've worked in Sandringham before, and I knew Sandringham, Beaumaris, Clayton. I knew the whole area. We used to actually go to the Sandringham home bride bakery and pick up the night's bread, which we paid for, of course. And that's my story. I'll stick to it forever. But picked up the night's bread. And so we got the call. Cheltenham crime cars were occupied with another job, I believe, at that stage. That was Mick Rommel and Paul Dacey. So we came up there and said, we're not far away. I know how to get there, straight down Springvale Road, Kingston Road, and you're there. So let's go. And we headed down there, and we were first on the scene. And as you were driving up the road, you could see this black, dark line down the gully, which is Peter's blood. Just a trail of blood down the gully. And when we got to him, obvious, he's gone. Yeah. No chance of, no point in calling anyone. He's gone. There's nothing. So we're sort of manning the scene for a while, and then Cheltenham turns up. Cheltenham Primaries turn up, and we swap positions because it's their home area. They take care of the scene, and Paul and my job was then to go around to every security guard we find and get information. Have you seen anything? Have you heard anything? Did you hear a shot? The usual sort of background check.
Yep.
So we were doing all that, and actually at one point we're at the Home Pride Bakery again. I love the coincidence of this. We're at the Home Pride Bakery again, and the call goes out from Sandringham 311. What had happened, and it's funny how this has all worked out, what had happened is Kai had actually left the scene and basically reversed the route we were driving. We actually passed each other on the way. He basically went over to Springvale Road, then up Nepean Highway to South Road, along South Road to the beach, down to Ricketts Point. And that's how we passed each other in Springvale Road. And the Sandringham boys, being Peter Kieran and Graham Fletcher, miles away from this, so they're not putting the two together at this stage. Who would? And they've got this old HR Holden that's sort of obviously old and a bit decrepit, and I think one headlight was gone, so that'll do for a licence check. So they go to pull him over at Ricketts Point, and Kai puts his brakes on so the front of the car drops down, and put his indicator on, gave every indication he was pulling over. So the boys relaxed a little bit because everything was fine, as you do. And in the meantime, he's changed changed down to first gear, and he's reassembled both the rifle group, the butt group, and the stock group as a weapon, which he'd taken apart after shooting Peter. And about, I don't know, Peter and Graham were about 10 metres from the intercept. He suddenly dropped the clutch, spun out beside them, picked up the weapon and shot through his own windows at Peter and Graham. And off he's gone. Now, Pete and Graham have thought, well, there's damage to the car. Transport branch are going to want to know who to blame for it, or who to send the account to. So the pursuits come up, and they've travelled around the various side streets of Beaumaris until eventually the old HR just can't keep up with the power of Sandringham behind them, and eventually cars just died.
Yeah.
Cars died. In the space of a couple of seconds, Kai's got out of the car and has now got his weapon reassembled, and he's using the bonnet as a firing stance, using the bonnet to aim at Peter and Graham. And every time the interior lights went on, because in those days our interior lights all automatically went on, and there's something about that I want to talk about. Either way, so every time they opened the door, bang, 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 bang. So Graham's got up on the floor and basically on the air and said, hey guys, we're having a party. Anyone want to join us? Come down here. And of course the air's gone crazy. Swan Hill 303 on the way. Mildura 311, not far off, that sort of thing. Everyone's on the way. And by that stage, Paul is out of the car. He was the driver that night. Paul's out of the car talking to the guy from Home Pride, can't remember his name. And I picked up the radio and said 406, Sandringham, Cheltenham, Caulfield 406 on the way. Yep. Picked up the PA system because we had a PA in those cars as well. It was a Mark car. Yeah, it was Mark car. And hopped in the driver's seat. By the time Paul's run back to the car, because I've called over the PA, Sandringham boys are being shot, let's go. By the time he's got the car, I'm in the driver's seat. He gets 1 foot in the car and we're off. Dragging his foot behind him. Unfortunately, I let adrenaline take over. Did some stupid things to get there. Went through the intersection of Kingston Road and Old Geelong Road about 140, and that's when it had a big hump over the intersection. We landed 40 metres later, bottomed out the sump. I just let adrenaline take over. I was stupid, which is why at the academy I tried to talk about controlling the adrenaline. And we got down there so quick, and apparently by the D24 tape, at 2 minutes 23. 2 minutes 23 seconds from me coming up in the air to the time we arrived there. So, yeah, driving like a cut snake. And how the hell I didn't kill us, and I'm glad I didn't, but how the hell I didn't kill us all the way is beyond me. Either way, we get there. And the whole idea is then under the direction of both our own decision and also everything else. The idea is to surround the park because he's gone from, in the time it's taken me to get from A to B, he's gone from the park, gone from behind the car into Griffiths Reserve, which no longer exists. There's now houses. But it was a park there, and he's gone into the park. So the entire intention of everyone there is surround the park, random patrols, just keep his head down until the men in black turn up, and they can take it from there. Unfortunately, one of the guys was driving around with his high beam on, and the army veteran, me, didn't like that too much. So we ended up driving past each other, driver side window to driver side window, and I think I used a couple of expletives where I asked him very, very sedately to turn his damn lights off because he was spotlighting us. At that stage, and that was at the roundabout, and we then turned into Tramway Parade and got down the road. By that stage, Kai has moved. He's no longer in the park. On our right-hand side, because we're literally driving around, again, taking on information that we heard instead of assessing other information, tunnel vision. And so we're all basically looking into the park, trying to find a head, trying to see some sort of indication of him. But by that stage, he got out of the park. He was on my left-hand side, so we're looking away from him. And he waited until we were measured by homicide, forensics. He waited until we were 16 metres from him. We'd already been highlighted to him because of my call out to the other car and the lights and etc. He stood up from behind this little brick fence and put 27 rounds through my car. Turned my car into Swiss cheese. First round hit the passenger side tyre, next round hit the passenger side headlight. Next 5 or 6 rounds went across the body diagonally. Now, he's been trained by the army in shooting, so he's watching his fall of shot because of very limited street lights, and he was watching where his shots were actually landing, and he was trying to get the driver because you can immobilise the driver.
Yep.
You're right. By that stage, however, a couple of rounds hit the rocker cover of the engine, and the car was dead. He wasn't going nowhere, so he could have just left it at that. Paul, and then we started to get sprays across the windscreen. Paul did the only thing, and I do mean the only thing anyone could have done, because we were in a Commodore 4 on the floor. He bent over the gear lever as low as he could, trying to leave as much room as he could for me, but basically put the engine block between him and the shooter. Yep. And that was this common sense, smart thing. I would have done exactly the same. Now, what he did was perfectly logical, and that's the way I feel about it. We would have been changed positions. I would have done exactly the same. But unfortunately, that left me with the steering wheel in front of me and no way to get out. So did the only thing I could do, because the engine was dead, was to try and put the body of the vehicle between me and him. I could see that the shots and the noise and all that stuff was coming from our right front. So put myself on the other side of the vehicle. Then you've got two diverse targets, Paul inside, me outside. Hard for him to cover us both, gives us a chance to do something. But unfortunately, in the process of him watching his fall of shot, etc., and he's a good shooter, not a bad shooter, he managed to know where his shot was going to land. And as I turned around in the car, he saw my head appear between the door pillar and the windscreen pillar, and pulled the trigger. Bullet travelling at 1,800 feet per second, travelled that distance 16 feet or 16 metres in a very quick time, and I copped it in the back of the head. And lay down for a while, had a bit of a snooze. Lay down for a while, still conscious. I was still conscious right until they got me to hospital.
So, hang on, So you've been shot by a high-powered rifle in the back of the head, but you're still conscious?
Yeah.
So what were you feeling then? Like what?
Pain. Just lots of pain.
Pain.
It was like my body was on fire.
Your entire body?
Yeah, because it hit, fragmented into 37 fragments. So there's parts of that bullet in every quadrant of my brain. Every quarter of my brain's got parts of the bullet. Frontal lobe, cerebellum, the whole bit. It's all got one or two fragments of metal there.
So were you aware at this stage that you had been shot?
No. All I could feel was pain. It was just the overriding thing was massive pain. I believe I shit myself. I know I urinated.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, we had no control over anything. And the people that are the heroes in this are Paul and I've never been able to find a name. The young female radio operator.
Yeah.
She was brilliant. She kept Paul calm. She didn't know he was being observed all the time. She just did so much for Paul. I'll never be able to thank her enough. Yeah. How much she helped me. Paul got the wrong call sign. He called us Cheltenham 406, but what the heck? And there was another vehicle there, a Southern TOG vehicle, was able to see us, and he was reporting on if there was anyone there. And the radio operator just basically said, "You're being watched. You're safe. We'll know if anyone's coming towards you. Just keep your head down. We'll get to you." And so she did an amazing job of helping my buddy, because we were close. Our team was a tight team. And Paul just lay on the front seat of the car, as far as I'm aware, with his firearm in his chest. And basically, if a head had come up, he was going to take care of it. So the night goes on. The bosses made a direction that no one was to go and save us.
Yeah.
Because no one knew who this shooter was, where he was, and had to. It could have been just the typical IRA situation: draw them all in and then fire up. So, decision by the boss, I support as well. May have not wanted it, but it's an appropriate decision by the boss.
Yep.
But Mick and Paul, Cheltenham 406, wasn't good enough for them. So they disobeyed a directive, and I can only thank them for it. They just said, "Look, we might just zap down and see if we can grab them." All very Kaz, and Mick's always been a very, very Kaz bloke. We would just might zap down and see if we can do something here. So, as far as I'm aware, and Mick, if I'm wrong, please forgive me. I can only go by the memories I have. But they grabbed me and threw me in the back of the car. And Paul then is running around the car in ever-diminishing circles. They grabbed him and threw him on top of me, which is probably where I got the whiplash, and did a flying reverse phalanx with other cars joining them and down to where the ambulance was waiting. And I'm still conscious at that stage, not with it, well and truly out of it, but not with it, but there. Then later on, again, coincidence, I end up meeting the ambulanceman many, many years later in the army. He's in the army, I end up meeting him. And
the degrees of separation are quite astounding.
And it's part of the story. I was instructor on a promotion course, and this guy, Mr. Nagel, came up to me and said, "Oh, Sergeant Fenton, at least you're not spitting at me this time." He's a warrior, so I'm thinking, what's going on? I don't remember ever spitting at a senior rank. And he tells me that he's the ambulanceman, the senior one on the crew that night that attended me. And what had happened is, because I'd been laying on my stomach for anything up to an hour, waiting for recovery, and I'd been shot in the back of the head, all the blood had pooled at the front of the head.
Yeah.
So it looked like it was a through and through. They actually gone right through my head.
Yeah.
And he had a young trainee with him. So the ambulance guy made a quick assessment, made a quick triage assessment, and basically said, "Our snafu, situation normal, no way of saving this guy." Whereas Paul, a lot of people downplay those injuries. Paul's injuries were massive. His back was shredded by the exploding windscreen, literally shredded.
Yeah.
And he had a real chance of dying from blood loss, from shock. It's important that people know just how badly, everyone talks about mind injuries.
Yeah.
Paul was massively affected and then psychologically affected because of survivor guilt.
Yeah.
He went through a really hard time. I was sleeping. I had it easy. He was going through a hard time. They looked at Paul, and the senior guy said, "Look, there's a chance we can save Paul from shock because he's lost a lot of blood. He's going to lose more. We can possibly save Paul. Got no chance here.
Yeah.
He's gone. Yeah, that's it." He made a triage decision, which I fully support, to keep me comfortable a bit, and then concentrate on Paul, the one they could save. And after a few minutes, etc., apparently he tells me that he turned around, and instead of lying on the ground, I'm now sitting up with my head wobbling like a bobble, one of those bobble dogs. And it's hark. Sorry, sorry. We better do something about it. And so they started to dress my wound and all that sort of thing. So we go off in a flying wedge off towards the hospital, cops and police cars and officers and all that sort of shit. And I finally get to the hospital. I'm wheeled in on my stomach, and if you've seen any of the vision, you can see how distressed Paul is. He's in one bit of film, and you can see how absolutely overwrought he is. This is, close or not, we're partners in the job, and one of them is gone. And if you've seen the recent one, he was cradling my head in the ambulance, and he'd been told that I'm not going to make the trip. My pulse was somewhere around 140 to 160. My pupils were unequal, unreactive, and I was doing what they call chain stoke breathing, which is the death rattle: 3 breaths in, 3 breaths out, a cough, a breath, pause. Basically just the body shutting down. So they got me to hospital, got wheeled in, and went into the emergency department. At that stage, I'm unconscious again. I'm conscious again, sort of. And Dr. Christine Wall, who's the doctor in charge at a particular stage, comes to examine me, and she puts her hand on my head, and I use that moment to say, "Please don't hurt me anymore." I've moved my arm to protect my head and said, "Please don't hurt me anymore," or something like that. And of course, they suddenly realised, shit, he can talk, he can respond, he's feeling pain. He's not quite as dead as we thought he was, because on the trip they'd been conveying my obs and I'd been marked NFR, not for resuscitation, which again, triage decision, smart decision, appropriate decision. No problems with that. But suddenly, situation changed, and apparently they had a drunk in the bath at that stage, the way they used to treat the old drunks, dry him out a bit. And he was left in the bath for over an hour. "Oh, he's still alive, yeah, that's fine. And put more water in, yeah, that's fine, we'll come back to him." Everyone's basically taking care of Paul and I. And I'm glad they spent so much time on Paul because he's okay. Then after some time, I've slipped into a coma. And I distinctly remember that. It was like stepping into a warm bath. A body temperature, like an immersion pool or a sensory pool. It was like stepping into a sensory pool. The pain stopped in my toes and my fingers. Then stopped in my wrists and my ankles. Then in my knees. And basically, as I stepped into the bath, the pain just dissipated.
So we're not talking about a medically induced coma here. It's a natural
They did that later.
Yeah.
But at that stage, I slipped into a
natural body-induced coma.
Yeah, shutting down to protect as much as I could. So I slipped into a coma, and then they kept that with a chemically induced coma from then on. And my last conscious thought was, that's it, Ronnie. You've bought the big one. You've won Tassodo. You're out of here. You're not coming back from this one. It was clarity of thought. I literally thought I was dying. That I was about to die. And so nothing will do about it. So here it goes. And then 10 days later, I woke up and thinking I was a medical experiment, thinking I was a dog in a medical experiment. Dog. You see, I've got dog, yeah. Kawiki dinky. I woke up thinking I was a dog in a medical experiment. I was a terrible patient. Because I was cerebrally confused, I kept on ripping out my cardiovascular line, my trachea and all that thing. I kept on ripping them out, and then they'd have to reinsert them, which is not fun. Not fun, especially the nasogastric swallow, Miss Fenton, swallows.
So do you know now that you had been shot?
By that stage, not the first couple of days.
Yeah.
It took about 3 days before someone actually revealed to me that I'd been shot with this. So, and also, I just wasn't in the mental capacity to take on board anyway. I knew I was in pain. I knew I was suddenly crippled. I couldn't do anything. I didn't recognise people. The world was strange. Strange. But got over that and moved on and woke up 10 days later. And I remember my family had been told that when family arrived, they were told I'd be dead in 3 hours, which is, again, appropriate. Then they said I'd be dead in 3 days. My body would slowly shut down. It was shutting really quickly, but now it's slowing down and will shut down eventually. I'll be dead in 3 days. Then they were told, look, we don't know when he's going to die, but he will die, and in the meantime, he'll be a vegetable. He'll never recover from this coma. He'll never be able to speak again, never be able to walk again. His brain has been decimated with all the fragments.
37 of them.
Except that he's going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life. And then I started to recover, come out of the coma. And that was a shock to everyone because 10 days in intensive care and suddenly I'm going to recovery from those injuries. A bit bloody weird. So they moved me up to recovery, but as I regained consciousness, they said, he won't be able to talk. His brain, speech is shattered. And so the doctor comes in, Dr. Jeff Turnbull, the registrar, comes in and asks me, how are you feeling, Ron? And my response, and it's been relayed to me by Bernadette, my partner at that time, and a number of other people that were there. My response was a little bit confused. I can't seem to correlate my visual perceptions with the reality around me. And the doctor said, fuck, he speaks better than I do. So much for never being able to talk again. And a lot of people are still angry about that I did get the ability to talk again. And then I spent a total of 3 months, 1 day, 13.5 hours at the Alfred in the various wards. Got home, bored as shit. So 3 weeks later, I turned up the Caulfield Chrome Car office. This is before work cover had the return to work certificate and all that sort of thing. So I just turned up at work and spoke to the boss and said, I'm here. I'm not leaving. Give me something to do. So here's a pad and paper. There's the storeroom. Go do something.
So what injuries did you cop from it?
Basically, what they call right-sided hemiparesis. So I have absolutely no sensation on the right-hand side of my body. I can move the body well, but I have no indication in space where it is. I close my eyes, my right arm could be in the air or down the bottom side. I just can't feel it because all the nerves have been severed in the brain. So right-sided hemiparesis, a bit like hemiplegia, but not quite as bad.
Prior to it, you were right-hand dominant?
Yep, I was right-handed. Yeah.
And now?
Left-hand.
So you taught yourself?
Yeah, I had learned to shoot non-master hand and fight and wipe my bum and do everything one-handed, but the other hand. And that took time. Even learning to write, the OT gave me this book where I had to write down words, and like it's three words to a page: cat, sat, mat. Back to school. And there's one where I've been doing an S, and I'm halfway through the S, and realised I got it wrong. So, big tear across the bar. Bugger that. Got it wrong. Here I used to be a wordsmith and I can't even write the word sat.
Yeah.
But that took a bit of time. So a lot of rehabilitation. And at that stage, at the time of the shooting, I'd actually put in for vacancy as the sergeant in charge at Glen Huntly Police Station.
Mm.
Now, back in those days, everything was seniority.
Yep.
Right? And I was the senior applicant.
Yep.
So I would have got the vacancy. Would have been OC Glen Huntly, little station, nice little backwater, had fun. But for some reason, the department's decided I'm probably not ready to take the job on just now.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the vacancy. Kept on working at Caulfield Crime Cars, spending 3 days a week at Caulfield Hospital doing rehabilitation, OT, speech therapy, all that sort of stuff. And they did a pretty good job trying to get me to walk again, all that sort of bravado. But also, I was injured and I was occupying a vacancy at Caulfield Crime Cars where a full able-bodied male, female could take a job.
But with the speech therapy, so with the damage to your brain and the 37 fragments that are floating around, how did that affect your speech?
Access to words, vocabulary, and also just control of the mouth, because the tongue is a very, very complex organ.
Yep.
And trying to get it to work the right way was very hard. You couple with that the confusion of what had happened and the memory loss that I got. Sometimes my conversation would go off on weird, wild tangents that even I didn't understand.
Yeah.
So it hit my speech rather badly because my father brought me up to actually love the English language and the nuances you can put in. You can be extremely insulting without saying anything mean at all. Yeah. Such things as "he means well." I love that. It's one of the greatest insults you can give. He means well. So it was hard, and also there was a lot of fear, about how good I would get back.
Yeah.
Whether I would get back. When I was in hospital, when they did one of the interviews, I said that I was going to go back on the job, back on the street within 12 months. Got the time frame wrong. Took me 12 years.
Yeah.
But I got there.
Still got it.
Yeah, I got there.
So
it was always my intention from the moment I realised what had happened. My intention was, come hell or high water, I will get back to the street, or I will die in the attempt. I'll get there.
Yeah.
But I joined the police force to be a cop.
Yeah.
And I learned after my experience. I loved the street. I loved working with the public. Loved solving problems, etc. So it was always my intention, no matter what capacity, was to get back on the street.
Yeah. So you've got obviously some pretty high-end physical injuries out of it, with losing the right-hand side. So then on top of that, you have to learn. You haven't got a dominant hand anymore, so your non-dominant hand now becomes your dominant hand.
Yep.
Learn to write, learn to wipe your ass, and do everything with your left hand. Shoot with your left hand. Yep. And fight. In a sense, learn to talk again.
Yeah, well, literally. Not even in a sense. Literally, I had to learn to talk. I had to learn actually how to think, how to compile a sentence in my head, and how to express it, and also how to get that sentence to be relevant to the conversation I was having.
Understand.
It's really complex to actually the thought process of thought to communication is bloody a lot more difficult than you realise when you're just doing it normally.
Yeah. So, and with all of this now, that obviously takes a massive psychological impact.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you navigate through that side of it? Like, because we're not talking about an era where mental health was openly spoken about, and or what it is like now, where we're getting a lot better at it. Like back then, I mean, you can't exactly say, "Hey, Ron, going hard enough." Yeah.
Well, that's what we said in those days.
Yeah. So how did you navigate through the, the as I was just explaining, then the actually being shot, which is, high-end trauma as it is psychologically, but then with the difficulties that you faced with the injuries that you now permanently had to live with.
Pure stubbornness.
Yeah.
Stubborn. I refuse to let it beat me.
Yeah.
It's that simple. As we were discussing before, my family brought me up with a very, very simple attitude, and that is that trauma happens in everyone's life.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. And you have a choice. You have a choice in everything in your life, because everything that you do stems from the decision you made before it.
Yeah.
As we were talking before, ones and zeros, life is binary, yes or no. I had the choice to either ask the world to feel sorry for me and wrap myself up in cotton wool, and the fact of the matter is people will feel some sympathy, but eventually that will dissipate because they've got their own lives to lead.
Yeah.
They've got to go on with their existence. You can't be the most important thing in anyone's world other than your own. So my family taught me if trauma happens, you can either wrap yourself up in cotton wool, and I will say it, and you can delete it if you need to. My family taught me if you're looking for sympathy, look in the dictionary between shit and syphilis, because that's where you'll find it. Or you can dust yourself off and say, that's unpleasant, that's hurt. What have I got left? What can I do with what I've got left?
Yeah.
And
Nice.
so I chose to be positive and to say, okay, I've been injured. I'm sure I can still do shit, and attack it that way. Attack it as a challenge.
Yeah.
And never look back. And as far as departmental attitudes and friends and all that sort of thing, I had to be very, very, self-serving. I had to put myself as a priority.
Yeah.
This was about what I could do in the future, without impeding or upsetting any other people if I could avoid it, and just set my goal. And if I don't get to the goal, at least I've tried.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, just keep on pushing with the overriding factor of it's entirely up to me how I deal with this.
Yep.
And that's what all it is. You have a choice in every circumstance in life. And you can choose to let it beat you, or you can choose to fight against it.
Yeah.
And as we've spoken about before this, as you know, I'm in the last stage of liver cancer, and I'm having a ball because I'm choosing to enjoy it.
Choosing to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on that.
Yeah.
So you're now 3 days a week. No, sorry, a couple of days at Caulfield. You're 3 days
at
rehab,
etc. And then still having applied for the Caulfield job, it's a Glenn Huntley job. I'm still probably naive enough to think, hey, I'm going to beat this. So I, since my physical capabilities or lack thereof, I applied for a role as personnel sergeant at Prahran headquarters.
Yep.
And much to the credit and recognition of the man, I put in my application and I got a phone call from Mick Miller.
Yep.
And just telling me that he was signing the transfer order today. And he just wanted to congratulate me on my promotion from senior constable to sergeant, and that I now have a vacancy of personnel sergeant at Prahran headquarters, I district headquarters. And getting told by the boss himself is rather nice. My response was, well, boss, that's great, but I'll, of course, wait for the appeal period before I start to celebrate. Someone may want that vacancy more than I do. And Mick's response was, Ron, you're not listening to me. You have the vacancy. There will be no appeal.
Yeah.
So sort of reading between the lines, well, I'm just about to be promoted to sergeant. And then I went to Prahran headquarters and was lucky enough to have Jeff Thomas and Sandy Langlands, both senior sergeants at that stage, of my immediate superiors. And they were really, really supportive.
Yeah, I don't know the other one, but I did have some very minor dealings when I first come in with Sandy Langlands, and she's a super then. A lot of people speak very highly of her.
Oh, yeah. She gave me a break. Unfortunately, my highest boss didn't like me much, and we won't go into that. He and I had a personality clash, but Sandy supported me all the way through. And either way, I was there at Sandringham. There at Pran headquarters. And Pran at that stage was also the admin or supervisor, whatever you call it, for search and rescue, which was based out in St Kilda.
Yep.
Now, Jeff Frost was the senior sergeant of search and rescue at that stage, and I actually trained Jeff Frost when I was in search and rescue. I trained him to be a diver.
Yep.
I was one of his instructing crew. And Jeff dropped into the office one day and saw I was there, and said, look, I need someone that actually understands the squad, who knows what we're about, and the reports we have to do and all that sort of stuff. I need an administrator because it's cutting into my time as the boss. So I got seconded over to search and rescue for quite some time, and enjoyed that for a while. But unfortunately, the department, because of their overprotective nature towards me, even though I was a qualified diver, I can't dive anymore, qualified bushwalker, warrant officer with the army, etc., they wouldn't let me out of the office. And I thought, well, at least I can go to a major land search and sit in the tent and coordinate
and help out.
grid searches. But not to be. So I was starting to get frustrated, bored, and a vacancy came up at, as it often was, a vacancy came up at the academy as Laurie. And everything since the shooting has been me wanting to make a valuable contribution to the force. And I figured if I go to the academy as a law instructor, I have the chance to at least have some impact or input into the future of the force, the young guys that have been trained. So I loved being at the academy as a law instructor. It was great. And, I still get contacted by some of my recruits, both out of respect and out of terror.
But it's one of those positions, like I know I've spoken to a few of my other lawyers, and I remember them, and I remember the lessons they taught me. And a lot of them weren't lessons that were in the Crimes Act.
No.
A lot of the lessons were, when you are doing this, be mindful of that. And I was mindful of that because they told me, and it stuck with me. And, like I've spoken to, Joey Donovan on numerous occasions, she still has a lot of contact with her recruits. Because you leave a very lasting impression on these, we call them our kids. But, some of them.
On these young, impressionable people.
Some of them, a bit older than kids, obviously, but,
because, it's a job, take out the military, it's a job like no other.
And
you've got to be aware, and you've got to be, with your eyes open with a lot of things, because, intrinsically policing is dangerous.
It is.
So to have the impact on, the direct impact on those coming out, it's fantastic.
But unfortunately, I also chose a time to go to the academy when they were starting to downgrade the rank and civilianise the position. So it became senior constables being the instructors, which I thought was probably the wrong move, because there are some, but not many senior constables have the wealth of experience. Prior to when I joined the job, and I've spoken to Mick Miller about this, all the assistant commissioner ranks were all ex-training command. Every assistant commissioner had some stint in training command. It was basically a rite of passage, so to speak. And I had this opportunity as a law instructor to try and influence the way in which people, our recruits and our future constables, treated people. Being aware that humans will make mistakes. They will fuck up. And it's up to you, a choice that you make, how you treat that person. So I enjoyed that, but they civilianised the position and reduced the ranks down to senior constable. So it was time for me to move, because my job was disappearing underneath me. So over to D24. And the reason I chose D24, sorry, I should have turned that clear enough. I've got to answer this.
Grab it.
Hey, mate.
We'll just do a quick pause.
No, mate, I haven't.
Right, we're back again.
Sorry about that, folks. I'll turn it back. Yeah, so transferred to G24 on the basis that it gave me the opportunity to be the sergeant on the street before the sergeant got on the street.
Yeah.
So you're there doing everything a sergeant should do, and preparing all the resources he needs, his backups and all that sort of thing, getting everything done for him so that when the sergeant arrives on the scene, everything's hunky-dory,
Yep.
and we move on. So it gave me the opportunity to be involved again.
Yep.
Once more to be involved again.
Well, your feet are in the water, aren't
Yeah. So I enjoyed my time there. It was great fun. Also financially rather good in those days.
Yeah.
And unfortunately then one night, I think it was one night, the old back stairs, I fell down the back stairs and broke my back. A disaster looking for a place to occur. And so I was off for 7 months with that. Bit of an argument with Gallagher Bassett about various things, but eventually got through all that.
Yep.
And work cover found a vacancy for me as a watch house keeper. It's Werribee. I lived in Werribee in those days. Being a watch house keeper, answering the counter was basically what they're talking about. Wasn't my go-to spot, but it was somewhere, and it got me home. So I took the vacancy. I was appointed to Werribee by work cover, and that was in early 1995. I arrived at Werribee on the 9th of January 1995. I then had an appointment with the boss, as in my chief super, a couple of days later, or the next day, because welcome to the district, welcome to my district, and this is what I expect from you, blah blah blah. Usual sort of stuff that sergeants get. So I thought, well, before I actually go to this meeting with the boss, I better find out exactly where I stand medically in the job. And at that stage, the PMO was Dr. Will Black. Wonderful woman. So I rang her because I'd been seeing her as a psych as well. I rang her, and her comment was, well, basically because of the discrimination laws now, if you can pass OST, you qualify.
Yep.
You've got the position. Which was, and actually that phone call was given to me on my birthday, on the 10th of January. That was the best phone call I've ever had. So the next day when I went to see the boss, I could say, hey, I've just got to do OST, and you've got yourself another member, and you've got a member free because you're appointed by work cover, supernumerary to ranks. So that phone call was one of the best phone calls I've ever had, because it got me back on the street again.
Yeah, you're back.
And so I did OST, completed OST, etc., and all these lads were kind enough to let me be there. I've been there for about 6 months, and a vacancy came up in Werribee, and Peter Grundy, the senior sergeant, asked me to apply for it. And I actually said, no, I don't want to, because whilst I'm here as a supernumerary, you have an additional sergeant, you have extra staff, which is costing you nothing. Let me stay here this way and you get benefits. Peter's response was, but you're also here under work cover, and they can pull you at the moment's drop. So I want you to go for the vacancy. So I went for the vacancy. I got it, even though I'm only a D-class driver because of the injury. And I then worked another 18 years as a sergeant at Werribee and outside North, fully operational on the street, and had the best time I could imagine. Being able to get back to the street. And what got me was I had a senior constable's enthusiasm. With a sergeant's rank, a sergeant's ability to make things happen. Best of both worlds. Keen as mustard to get back on the street and have fun, but also had the authority of a sergeant
to do stuff. So psychologically, where are you at now with the shooting?
Acceptance. It is what it is.
When I say now, when you're at Werribee.
Just excited. Excited, wrapped, and thoroughly at peace with it because it had happened, but it had made me the person I am.
Yeah.
I hated the physical shit that it imposed on me. Pain is a constant friend. I've got a high tolerance, but it gave me the ability to look back and say, as unpleasant as that was, it has progressed me to this point.
Yeah.
And what I do from this moment on is again my choice.
Yeah.
I can get upset about it and hate the repercussions, or I can say, well, let's work around them. And even when the PMO came to see me in the latest years, I had to do my OST in front of the PMO for various reasons that I don't need going into. But even the PMO said he didn't think I was going to pass, but he learnt that I'd found coping, compensating techniques to still achieve the same goal within the parameters of the law, but just not the way the force does it.
Yeah.
So it's good.
So when did your PTSD symptoms start kicking in?
That happened about 2007. What had happened is we had a young lad who has always been a bit of a problem in the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I actually feel sorry for the lad because he has a chemical intolerance to alcohol.
Yeah.
And the moment he touches it, it just sends him off the court. And we were at a nightclub dealing with a call. We'd been called to the nightclub by the bouncers. They had this guy who was creating problems. And I'd had many, many dealings with him during my career at Werribee. He'd been away interstate for a number of years for various reasons, which go to his psychological state, which I won't breach his confidence. But either way, we're at this scene, and he ended up getting a dose of a spray over the face, dealing with him with aftercare. Now, this lad had, at one stage, he had, at the age of 17, he had 172 charges against him for various crimes of violence. That was his antecedents.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a pleasant character. But I was all set for the physical assault because he was built like a brick shit house, a big boy, and I was all set and prepared for the physical assaults. I had all my guards up for that, but not for everything.
Yeah.
And he made a comment that he'd been in prison with Kai, the guy that shot me.
Yeah.
He'd actually been in the same cell with Kai, and said that when he got out of MAP, Melbourne Assessment Prison, he was going to get another rifle the same type and do it again, but do a better job.
Yeah.
And that's it in a nutshell. I was all set for the physical assault. I wasn't set for the psychological assault.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it got under my skin.
Yeah.
It got under my skin. And in the space of a very, very few short months, I deteriorated dramatically.
Yeah.
I hit the booze, hit the gambling, hit the drugs.
Yeah.
The evil trilogy.
Yeah.
I fell down the hole.
Yeah.
And after that followed a number of suicide attempts.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't cope with where my mind was.
Yeah.
It was a world of hurt, and I felt abandoned by the force because of various things that happened. I felt abandoned by friends, and none of which is true.
Yeah.
But my perceptions perception was skewed.
And this is one of the things with mental injuries, when you are psychologically injured, your brain's not thinking straight.
No.
So, and it's very hard to work out what's factual, what's
reality,
not, things like that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sitting here with this awesome chocolate lab next to me.
Yeah, it's a good boy.
So I met you, and it was actually quite funny because the bloke six were running, having the Code 9 meets in the town. And I got a message, Ron Fenton, the stubborn old prick, is going to come tonight. And I didn't know you at that stage, but I knew who you were, and I was going, oh, awesome, cool. And then I'd knew you for some time before Yogi come along, and I can still remember when you said, because we'd had Jimmy and Frankie there as assistant dogs, we're going to have another dog come. I'm like, oh, okay. Yogi.
Turned out to be him. Yeah. Oh, he's been such a tremendous life-saving impact on my life, and I'm just lucky I've got him.
So how did it come about?
What happened was one of my troops, Dave Evans, his mother is a writer, and she interviewed me for a little bit of a book that she was doing, and then through her contacts with the military, because she's a very, very well known ANZAC in the system.
Yep.
She actually got in touch with a group called DCD, much to my lack of knowledge.
Yep.
And then I started to get these messages about, we might have a dog for you. Really good. So time progressed, and comes to March 2017, and I'm doing a course at the old Spencer Street building.
Yep.
The forces engaged some university professor to investigate what gives members of the police force PTSD. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. And they're interviewing retired sergeants, current sergeants, retired constables, current constables, getting a broad spectrum.
Yep.
So I'm at this thing and having a lunch, and I get a phone call, Ron, you haven't answered your emails. I've been on this course for a few days. I'm not looking at emails. I'm worrying about this course. And they say, oh, look, we're from DCD and we have a dog for you. Oh, right. We need you to be here in Sydney on Monday. And, of course, excited as I am, I'm thinking, crikey, accommodation, transport, all the things I've got to do, cancel appointments. And they respond, no, your accommodations have been booked. Your plane flight is waiting at the airport for you. All you have to do is get your ass to the Tullamarine, get in the plane, and there'll be someone there to meet you and take care of you from there. Okay, so I got on the plane and went up to Sydney, went bus trip to Bathurst, and spent the night in a motel there in Bathurst. Next morning, go out to the prison and meet the DCD team. And the night before, they actually showed me a photo of Yogi, who I fell in love with the moment I saw him. And the next morning, we're there, and they're having a big press release of another graduation of another group of DCD dogs. And so I've gone out, and Benny, the inmate that trained Yogi, has gone away. He's come back. Now, I've never seen Yogi. I didn't get a chance because it was only Wednesday when I got the message. I didn't get a chance to send anything with my scent on it to give him some indication. It was our first ever meeting.
Yep.
And Benny was one end of the room, which is probably as far away as that driveway over there.
Yep.
And he slips the lead off Yogi and just says FREE. Can't say it because he hears it. FREE, and I just couldn't believe it. Yogi bounded straight across the room. There were probably 50 people in there with the dignitaries and the prison staff and all that sort of thing. He bounded straight across the room, paws on his chest, and just smothered me in kisses.
Yeah.
And that's it. We've never been apart since.
Yeah.
He must have seen the look in my eyes or whatever, but he knew that he was for me. There were 4 dogs there, but he knew he was for me, and that's where we stayed, and it's been great ever since. And that night, the very first night, because we have a conference every day afterwards to talk about how the night went. And that very first night, having been suddenly wrenched from my existence and thrown up to Sydney, and then to Bathurst, and then to go spend the entire day inside a prison.
Yeah.
Which is not the most comfortable spot for any copper.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Do we see the irony here?
Yeah, absolutely. But to spend an entire day and then subsequently 4 more days inside a prison all day with these guys that, they've made a mistake, they're paying the price.
Yeah.
And that's it. But it was obviously the perfect storm for a night terror.
Yeah.
I'm in a new state, different building, everything wrong.
Everything.
Yeah, everything's leading to it.
Yeah, so sure enough, during that night, I end up with night terror. And Yogi's in his crate, because they're all crate trained. Yogi detects this night, and I don't know, I mean, I know Benny trained him, but Yogi detected my breathing pattern was fucked, stuffed. And he got out of his crate, turned on the light, and climbed up on the bed and just slowly woke me up. Now, prior to that, it had been probably 7.5 years since I'd gone without night terror.
Yeah.
I was having them 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And those on this site will know that once you have a night terror, you don't go back to sleep.
Yeah.
You don't want it. Might be another one. No thanks.
Yeah.
But Yogi woke me up, just cuddled into me, so to speak, and then he lay with his head on my shoulder, breathing on my throat.
Yeah.
I could just feel the warmth of his breath on my throat. And for the first time in 7.5 years, I was able to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And the next morning when I told them about that, they said, well, that's it. We can't separate you two now. You're stuck. You're locked. And he's been like that all the time. He knows what's going on with me all the time. And, of course, with this cancer diagnosis, he's been working bloody hard. But I've got everything arranged for him.
So what how many pills were you taking a week before you had Yogi?
18 a day.
18 and by pills I'm talking psych medication.
Yeah, psychotropic stuff. Yeah, for major anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, and PTSD, and some other one I keep on forgetting, some weird convoluted medical name. But
and how many are you on psych meds after Yogi?
Within 4 months of Yogi, no night terrors, no meds at all. Gone.
Yeah.
Totally gone.
Pretty powerful dog.
Oh, well, dogs are.
Yeah.
It's not just Yogi, it's what dogs do. Basically, the constant dose of oxytocin from having a dog around has replaced every other drug I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on lots of tablets now, but that's for the cancer. But as far as psychotropic medication or psychological repair, haven't needed him for years now.
Yeah.
Because he's the thing that fixes everything. So you cannot underestimate the value of a dog.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
Absolutely incredible. So we come along, and then despite all the, not despite, that's not the right word, you've gone through, you've been shot, you've got 37 fragments in the head, you've done all this, you've done all that, and then you cop a cancer diagnosis.
Yep.
So how does that hit you?
Like a ton of bricks, of course. Obviously, suicide was the first point of call.
Yeah.
Basically, it was, woe is me. Haven't I been through enough? Why is this happening to me? I've done all this, and now you're putting me through this again.
Yeah.
Lots of anger, lots of self-blame, lots of doubt, recriminations, and all that sort of thing. And so the old black dog jumps off the shoulder and is well and truly screaming in the face.
Yep.
This is the time. You've done enough. You don't have to put up with this anymore.
Yep.
Now's the time to show them how badly you are hurt.
Yep.
But Yogi basically got between the two, got between me and the black dog and said, "Buzz off, he's mine."
Yeah.
And Suicide Alley lasted probably an hour.
Yeah.
Crying my eyes out, sitting out here where we are now.
Yeah.
Crying my eyes out, Yogi's all over me, etc. And I realised I can't leave him.
Yeah.
I can't leave him.
Yeah.
He depends on me. And also, he'd be pissed off if I did.
Yeah.
So I thought, no, it's a choice again.
Yeah.
I can get upset about it, or I can fight it.
So you're back to the ones and O's, the binary choices.
Absolutely.
And all of that. So, and like when I first rolled up here today...
Admittedly, I didn't really know what to expect. But, I mean, it's fair to say in the 30, 40 minutes that we chatted before we pressed record, there was pretty much smiles and laughter the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've now got this sense of, I'm not telling this story, but I mean, you're at peace.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I am in the extremely fortunate position. I'm dying. Extremely fortunate position that I know that the cancer I have, they can't give me any more treatment. There's no more treatments that will work.
Yep.
So now the cancer is going to progress, and it's going to take me when it takes me.
Yep.
But I'm in the fortunate position to know that that's ahead of me. I can make the choice to rail against it and talk about how unfair the world is, but it's not unfair. Everyone dies. Everyone, or no one gets out of this game alive.
Yep.
I have the beneficial position that I know it's coming. I'm in a physical enough state to be able to prepare myself for it, and I've got the financial resources to, at least not be destitute in the meantime. But I can enjoy the time I have left. I don't know exactly how long I've got.
Yep.
Doctors don't reckon I'll make it to November. I'm planning on next year.
Yep.
But I'm in the position where I can actually do something about it and make sure that the time I have left is filled with excitement and filled with joy and filled with love and filled with laughter.
Yeah.
Or I can be upset about it and deny the inevitability of it and waste my time and not have the chance to thank my juniors and my seniors and my friends and my lovers and all that sort of thing. I'm lucky. I've got the chance to say, "Hey guys, I'm going, but like to catch up with you before I go."
Yeah.
So I'm at total peace with this. Absolutely at peace with this. Also being a cop, control freak, I'm controlling my own death.
If you can do it.
Yeah, couldn't control my career, so I'll control my death. I'm in a good position, and I am calm with this, and I'm hoping that the fact that I am at this much at peace with it will be maybe an inspiration for others when they come to this time, if they come to a time like this, that they can look at it a different way rather than regretting it. Say, well, I've got the time to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy myself.
I don't think there's any doubt you'll have that influence on people. I think that's a given for me. Now,
there's a concept, again, Joe Donovan posted a while back, and there's a concept I'd never heard of before, a living wake.
Yep. And that was fantastic. That was great. It is not, I'm Irish French, so it is an Irish tradition. And it's basically a roast, so to speak, if you want to. But it's a chance for people that are important in life to get together. And we all talk about, I wish I'd told him, I wish he knew. Well, here's a chance.
Here's a chance to do it.
And moreover, a chance for me to thank my subordinates when I was working in Werribee, as we discussed before. These kids put their lives in my hand, even with me crippled and all that sort of thing, and gave me the chance to thank them for the trust they showed in me. Also a chance to have a bit of fun. They got photos of when I was dressed in Frankenfurter, and that was all over the room. A bit of embarrassment and a bit of stirring.
All good fun, though.
Oh yeah, all with the kindest possible intentions, I hope. It was a great day.
Yeah.
And I originally thought maybe we'd get 15, 20 people. I was stunned by the number of people that actually turned up. But it was a great afternoon.
Yeah.
I stayed till stumps, almost stumps. And we just had fun.
So you've flown, was it a Tiger Moth?
Yep.
So you've flown a Tiger Moth.
Oh, I've been a passenger in one.
Been a passenger in one.
Yeah.
You've
jumped out of a plane last week. Yep, again.
What's zip lining? You told me you made zip lining.
Yep.
What's on the agenda for the
festival? There's a place where you can actually ride a horse for about 3 hours, and then they cook you a huge bushman's feast, and then you ride back, so it's out of the bush.
Yeah.
So it's fun. There's I think they call it static free fall, where you're in a wind tunnel.
Yes.
And you're doing free falling.
Yep.
So there's that. Whitewater rafting, which I've done before. I want to do it again.
Yep.
I'm looking at possibly doing another para jump or two.
Yep.
Take it up a little bit higher, so a bit more free fall. Blythe won't be with them. And it's a case of I'm just looking through the adventure websites. I did hot air ballooning a few weeks ago. So I'm looking through those adventure websites and things that are fun. and taking a couple of friends with everything I do. I take a couple of friends with me, let them enjoy it. And basically, I'm filling up my life with fantastic experiences that hopefully I can take with me. If I can't, it's not going to matter. It's not going to hurt me if I can't take them with me.
But you're having a red-hot crack at
if I can. And if I don't achieve everything on my bucket list, well, I'll give it a red-hot crack.
You're having a go.
Yeah.
Now, I'll apologise in advance, but this you might get a bit emotional over this one, but
hopefully with all things being equal, you should have a visit from someone pretty special who you haven't met yet.
Oh, right. Oh, that tells me lots.
Your granddaughter?
Oh, yes, my granddaughter, yeah, that's important. That's really important. My son gave birth to a beautiful little girl in May this year. Unfortunately, coronavirus has stuffed up the world.
Yep.
But at this stage, with a lot of friends, Joe Donovan and a few other friends, all pushing, and we're hoping to get him over here in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
And bring my granddaughter over, just so I can say hello and goodbye at the same time.
Yeah. Been pretty special.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty special. What am I
she's my only surviving.
It's an enormous thing. It's about, where are they? Spain or something?
In Spain, Barcelona. Yeah. Unfortunately, because of my medical condition, I can't go there because I have to have access to what I need here.
Yeah.
They haven't got it over there.
And then with COVID getting here.
No, crikey, I thought I turned that off.
Righto, so let's go through. Can you give me your 5 best non-policing experiences? And I mean, you probably got a gazillion of them. But can you narrow it down? Can you narrow it down to 4 or 5 experiences in your life that you could look back on and go, "That's shit hot."
Oh yeah.
Non-policing.
Non-policing.
So personal life.
The birth of my children.
Yeah.
Definitely. You can't beat that. The birth of both my boys, both Mark and Ron, have been such an important thing in my life. The first time I did free fall.
Yep.
First time I did free fall was really
when
good.
Was that?
Oh, crikey, 1990.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Hang on, was it before or after? Yeah, about then.
Yeah.
Buying my first car.
Yeah. What'd you get?
1952 MGTD, which I still own.
Yeah.
Yeah, still got it. It's almost fully restored now. So we're trying to get it up on the road before I go.
So I'm doing a little spin.
I bought that was my very first car. Yeah, that's my very first car. In fact, at the academy, the recruits used to comment about. I think someone said, "Oh, Richard Gere." Beautiful red 1952 MGTD was, but that's a material thing. Really good points. It's not an instance, it's a progressive instance, is being able to recover and get to where I am now.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
The recover, the repair of everything coming together.
Yep.
That's probably been the best thing in my life, that my body has done enough to let me enjoy my life, no matter how badly damaged it is.
Yeah.
I've been able to get back and be involved with people and have a little bit of influence here and there, because every contact leaves a trace.
Yeah.
And just being able to meet the people I've met. Now, I talk about the amazing experiences I've had in my life, but moreover, I've met some amazing people.
Yeah.
Both military and police. There are bosses in the army that I've tried to emulate as a warrant officer. Just the experience of life, and this is all going back to what we're talking about with binary. Binary life is choice. Tomorrow, there's always a chance that tomorrow will be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope.
Yeah.
Hope is important to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't do anything about my physical state, but I can hope for a good day tomorrow.
Yeah.
And even in the depths of depression and PTSD and all that sort of thing, if you can hang on to hope that, as bad as it's been up till now, and there's no doubt if past performance is the indication of future performance, there's no doubt there's right to feel somewhat tenuous or reticent about what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yep. Yep.
But the fact of the matter is there's always hope.
The word hope is vastly underrated.
Oh, yeah.
Vastly.
And look, I've met some brilliant people and been involved in some brilliant organisations that have supported me and been gracious and kind enough to help me. But I've just been fortunate that I've been able to, thanks to my family, been able to realise that it is what it is, as we both agree on.
Yep.
And it's entirely up to you to make your choice. Do you want to be happy or do you want to be sad?
Yeah.
I want to be happy.
Yeah.
And I can influence that by my actions. We're all the result of our actions and our decisions. And I can influence every day of the future of my life by making the right decision.
Yep.
If in hindsight that decision turns out to be wrong, as long as I made it with the best possible intentions, with all the knowledge I had at that time, then it's an okay decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
that's absolutely agree 100% with that. With what you've got before you at that time, you make a decision that's what you think's the best.
And you accept accountability for it, whichever way it goes.
Put your hand up.
Yep.
I know 4 or 5 policing experiences that have been very... on the
First day back lights and bells after when I got back to the street.
Yep.
There was a Werribee Cup, and Werribee Cup had behaved like the Werribee Cup does.
Yeah.
Bloodbath time. And it turned out that one of our members was glassed at the Railway Hotel. And I remember in a brawler, the old big brawler, lights and bells down the road. You can't get too fast with a brawler, but still lights and bells down to the hotel to deal with it. And that was the first lights and bells I had since I returned to the street. I love this. Yeah. Definitely one of the highlights of my job. Being allowed to go back to the street, that was really, really important. The privilege I got when I was in the academy, they allowed me with every squad to give a presentation about my shooting.
Yep.
And the ramifications and implications of that have occurred since then, I'm hearing from my friends and how they remember that lecture specifically. There was one lecture given to every single squad 2 weeks before they graduated. And it was basically a reality check. And basically saying...
Oh, huge.
Your uniform is not bulletproof and you can get injured in this job.
And I think I was not fortunate enough to be exposed to that. And I distinctly remember walking out of City Patrol Group
My first day out into the street, and I just thought the world stopped and looked at me. In reality, no one gave a shit.
No one gave a shit.
Just another cop wearing a proper uniform.
Yeah.
But to have, because everything going through the academy, you get told stories, you're watching videos,
this, that, and the next thing. But to have an actual member standing in front of you that had been shot through no fault of their own, but there are people out there that want to cause great harm, magnificent reality check.
And you need it because at that stage, at the 17-week stage, you are bulletproof.
Yeah.
The world cannot, you are about to change the world. And they gave me that opportunity to present to every single squad. And in fact, I like to think it was actually the basis of the formation of OST.
Yep. Because
that's when we started to have lectures about reality and how to do things, and OST was created soon thereafter. So that was an honour I was given, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Would have kept on doing it, apart from the way all turned out. The shooting itself.
Yeah.
The shooting itself was obviously a watershed moment in my life.
Yeah.
And a watershed moment in the lives of many, many others. But in hindsight, looking at it as a whole, it was beneficial for me.
Yeah.
As we discussed before, I wouldn't change it for the. Sure, I'd get rid of the pain at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
But what it actually did to me, the way in which it changed me as a person, changed my thought process, changed my attitude towards life. I wouldn't change it for the world. The shooting was, in fact, probably one of the better parts of my life, which is weird.
It's weird, but I think it's one of those situations that people really need to have lived to really fully
understand what you're saying. I get it to a degree.
Yeah, you would.
Because like I'm the same with my diagnosis, but
most of the guys in K9 will get. We've all been damaged. We've all had some huge or repetitive trauma that's hurt us, and we are a result of that now.
yeah.
So I'm sure all the guys and girls on K9 will be able to take. Yeah, I can see what he's saying here. It has had a tremendous and positive influence on my life. I actually think I'm a better man now as a result of the shooting than I was beforehand.
Do you ever spend any time thinking about what life would have been like if you weren't shot?
No.
That's way in the past.
Yeah, not only is it in the past, it's an impossible concept. I mean, look, I was, because of the way the force was in those days, I was destined for officer rank.
Yeah.
In the qualifications, etc. I was bound to be an officer, or looking at being an officer and all that sort of thing. But this just changed, changed the goalpost totally.
Yeah.
And it's not the life I had, and I can't change that. So thinking about it is just a waste of time.
Yeah.
I've got more important things to do right now than worry about regrets of what could have been.
You've got a pretty serious bucket list to fulfil.
Yeah. And worrying about what could have been, how long's a piece of string?
Yeah.
Whereas I've got so much fun and so much enjoyment. I'm almost euphoric at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I can see the path ahead of me. It's still indistinct in many regards.
Yeah.
But there's a clear and defined direction. I'm in control of where I go.
Yeah.
There is absolutely nothing for me to be sad about.
Yeah.
Literally nothing for me to be sad about apart from the fact that I'm running out of time. But we're all going to run out of time. No one gets out of this game alive.
And I'll say you do look healthy.
I feel a lot healthier than I physically am.
Yeah.
But that's...
If you take out the knowledge, so when I walked in here today, I looked at you and I was going, you look healthy.
Yeah.
And then when you started sort of saying how healthy you are, and I'm sitting there going, well, you're not
bullshitting me because you do genuinely look very much at peace with the world.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And when people are approaching this time of life, have a think about what I've done. And I can tell you, it beats the heck out of sitting in a lounge chair feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm having an absolute ball.
Yeah.
And I'm having a ball in such regard that I wouldn't be able to have if I wasn't in this position.
Yeah.
It's been actually cathartic to have this. And I'm young enough and fit enough to not deteriorate really badly.
Yeah.
But when the cancer takes its hit, it will knock me down very quickly.
Yeah.
Which again is beneficial because I don't have to suffer.
Yeah.
As long as we can keep the pain away, that's good enough for me.
I think it's just an extraordinary attitude, but I'll go back to when I was first told by you, messaged me, like, Ronnie's coming, he's a stubborn old prick. But I think for me, certainly, and like everyone I've spoken to
just talks about you as just resilient, and what you've been through in your life, and yet here we are sitting out with the wind chimes going, and you look healthy, you're smiling, and all that. Like so many other people would have just sort of melted into a corner, and life sucks kind of attitude. But I give it to you,
No, thanks, mate.
Mate. I I feel very grateful to be able to be sitting here for an hour 39 and 50 seconds at the moment talking on tape, but the previous 40 minutes we did before it and all the conversations we've had in the past, I'm very grateful. You've exposed me to a lot of information that that otherwise I would have known. Like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around you knowing, like, I just had this thought in my head that when you were shot, you were out. And then you tell me, oh, no, I wasn't. I'm like, oh, hang on. I'm trying to get my head around this because, I mean, I knew early on when we were talking about the 37 fragments in your head and do you buzz when you go through the airport and things like that. So, mate, thank you so much. Some people are going to get enormous information out of your you allowing us to listen to your story. I think it's fantastic.
Mate, thank you very much for calling me and giving me the opportunity to say goodbye to the guys and the girls, all over the world. My attitudes are I'm proud of what I did in the force. I'm proud of what I did in the army. But it's time now to step out and just find out what the next adventure is. And I'm at peace with that. And I'm wrapped to have been included in groups like Code 9 and other groups, and just the people have given me the chance to express what I feel. So I really thanks for that, mate.
Anytime, and good luck with the bucket list.
No worries. See you later, guys. Take care. I'll be back.